Her billionaire husband mocked her while she fought for her life in labor. What happened next damaged him for good. She thought the pain of labor would be her greatest trial, until she heard her husband laugh. The surgical lights above flickered once as the scream caught in Amaya's throat. Her hands clutched at the sides of the cold operating table, fingers trembling. Nails cracking under pressure as a violent contraction seized her spine. The room spun. Her skin was soaked with sweat. Monitors beeped in quick, irregular succession. The sharp tang of blood and antiseptic filled her nostrils, and something deep inside her tore again. BP's dropping fast, her oxygen's unstable. One nurse shouted, fumbling for the emergency adrenaline. Another pressed down on Amaya's abdomen, eyes wide. "We're losing her. She's crashing." A mask hovered above her lips. The anesthesiologist's voice was soft and urgent. "Breathe, Mrs. Duval. Please, just hold on for your babies 1 more minute." But Amaya's eyes, wide with fear, stared not at the mask, nor at the ceiling. Her gaze was fixed, locked, on the door that had just swung shut. Behind it, she had heard a sound that didn't belong in a room filled with life and death. Laughter. His laughter. Her husband, Braden Duval, the father of the twins, the man who had kissed her forehead as she was wheeled in and whispered, "You've got this, love." He was laughing, not the relieved kind, not the nervous chuckle of a man too overwhelmed by fear to act right. No, this was mocking, confident, detached. The same arrogant sound he made when he dismissed people in boardrooms or embarrassed a junior employee with a sharp comment. She'd heard it before, but not like this, never like this, because today she was dying, and he was laughing. Across the hallway, in the luxurious marble-walled waiting lounge, reserved only for VIP family members and high-ranking donors, Braden Duval adjusted the cuff of his designer shirt and swirled the whiskey in his glass. The staff had brought it without question, just as they always did. He was, after all, the CEO who funded the hospital's newest pediatric wing. Iris sat across from him, legs crossed, wearing a red satin dress that barely tried to hide her growing belly. She rubbed it slowly with manicured fingers, her smile painted with something sharper than joy. Victory. "You know," Iris murmured, tilting her head coyly. "She might not make it." Braden shrugged. "She wasn't strong," he said casually. "Not like you." She laughed, low and indulgent. "You said that to her once, didn't you? That she was strong?" He chuckled. "People believe anything when it's whispered in a hospital hallway." He didn't flinch. Not at the sound of the emergency code blaring faintly in the corridor. Not at the hurried footsteps rushing past the frosted glass doors. Not at the chaos they both knew was happening behind those sterile walls. Instead, he smiled, sipped, and leaned back. "You really think she didn't know?" Iris asked. "I mean, come on, Bray. How could she not notice the lies?" "She noticed," he replied. "But women like her, they forgive until it kills them." Another laugh, this time from both of them. And back in the operating room, that laugh echoed like a blade across Amaya's spine. A doctor pressed paddles to her chest. "Clear." The jolt made her body arch from the table. Her heart stuttered. Again. The light above became a halo. Her ears rang. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was slipping, fast, into the cold silence between two worlds, 1 foot already beyond. Images flashed behind her eyes. The moment Braden had held her hand during the sonogram, the way he'd kissed her shoulder when they found out it was twins, the letter she had hidden in her nightstand, the one her lawyer drafted but she never had the heart to sign, the screaming she swallowed when she caught him coming out of Iris's hotel suite 3 months ago, the way he convinced her to stay, said it was just a mistake, said Iris meant nothing, said their family still had a chance, and she believed it. Even after Iris's stomach started to swell, even after Braden started working later hours, even after he became a ghost in their marriage bed, she still held on. For the twins, because she'd promised herself if she could just survive the labor, if she could, just bring them safely into the world, then maybe everything would make sense. Maybe it would all be worth it. Flatline. She's flatlining. No pulse. Push 1 milligram epinephrine. Now. The room turned red. Alarms screamed. The floor beneath the nurses seemed to shudder. A crash cart was slammed against the wall. One nurse wept quietly. Another whispered a prayer. Then, Two soft cries broke through the noise. A baby boy, then a girl. They were here, but she wasn't. Not yet. Back in the lounge, Braden's phone buzzed. He answered it lazily. "She made it," he said flatly. "Well, good." He ended the call before the nurse could finish. Iris leaned closer. "What happens now?" Braden smiled, rising from the sofa. Now I give a press statement about how grateful I am. Say how strong she is. Hold the babies for the camera. And then," he glanced toward the double doors that led back to ICU. "Then I hand her the papers. She'll be too weak to fight this time." Iris grinned. "And me? You'll be the wife before the year's out." She touched her stomach. "And the world will forget she ever existed," he finished. Inside ICU room 3C, Amaya lay pale and quiet, tubes running into her veins, a ventilator assisting every breath. Her eyes fluttered, then opened slowly. Pain, a fog of confusion, and then the softest cry. Two tiny perfect souls swaddled in pastel blue and pink lay in the nurse's arms. One yawned, the other blinked, and something ancient and powerful rose inside Amaya. The strength of every woman who had ever been broken and still chose to rise. The fire of every mother who had been lied to, abandoned, used, and still opened her arms for love. She blinked again. The fog began to lift. The door creaked open. Braden entered. He smiled like a man who'd already won. But she saw it now. The lie behind his teeth, the mistress's scent on his suit, the indifference in his eyes. And she remembered the laugh. That cruel, distant laugh while she bled and her heart stopped. Her hand moved slowly, weak but deliberate. She reached for the envelope tucked beside the bed. The papers she never signed. Yet, not then, but now she would. Because this time, he would be the one to bleed. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to realize they were praying for your downfall? Tell me in the comments. Or just say, "I'm with you, Dr. Phillips." The kitchen smelled of rosemary and freshly baked salmon. Amaya moved slowly between the island and the oven, one hand gently, resting on her lower back, the other stirring a simmering sauce. Her silk maternity robe fluttered lightly as she moved. She wasn't due for another 10 days, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Her belly was heavy, heavier than usual, and tight. The twins had been unusually quiet that morning, as if saving their strength for something. Her fingers traced the outline of her stomach, lips parting slightly with a wince. Then it came. A sharp cramp seized her abdomen like a cold hand curling into a fist. "Ah," she gasped, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. It lasted 7, maybe 10 seconds. Not long. But not like the Braxton Hicks one she'd been used to either. This one had teeth. She stood there for a moment, waiting for her body to calm down. Slowly, she turned the burner off, steadied her breath, and wiped her brow. "False alarm," she murmured. She turned to grab her phone and call the doctor, just in case, but paused when voices floated down the hallway. It was faint, but clear enough. The home office, door half open. Braden. And Iris. Amaya's feet froze. Her heartbeat didn't. The contractions didn't matter now. Inside the office, Braden paced the room in his usual tailored slacks, crisp white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Iris stood beside his desk, one arm cradling her rounded stomach, the other resting on a file folder. "I just need you to confirm it." Braden snapped into the phone. "If she doesn't survive the delivery, the payout doubles, right?" Pause. A muffled voice responded from the other end. Amaya couldn't hear it all, but what she caught made her blood run cold. Braden exhaled with irritation. "Don't give me ethics, Russell. I've paid for the platinum tier for a reason. I want to know exactly what the policy says." Another pause. Iris chuckled. "You're too tense, babe. The universe will work in our favor. Amaya's body is too weak for twins anyway." "You said that yourself." Braden didn't deny it. Instead, he nodded. "If it happens," he said calmly, "I need the press kit ready. Sympathy statements. Maybe even donate one of the wings in her name. That should keep people off our backs while we transition." "While we transition?" Iris teased. He walked over and kissed her forehead. "You're the future, Iris." Amaya clutched the doorframe, her legs trembling, not from the pregnancy, but from the avalanche crashing through her chest. Her mouth was dry, her limbs suddenly numb. That call. The insurance, if she doesn't survive. She wasn't supposed to survive. Not to them. To them, she was a walking check. Collateral. A vessel. And maybe, just maybe, Braden had been counting on her not making it through labor all along. The nausea hit first, followed by rage, then a second, even sharper contraction. She bit down on her lips so hard it nearly bled. Then, suddenly, a warm, wet rush between her legs. She looked down. A splash of amniotic fluid darkened her robe and ran in rivulets down her bare legs onto the cream-colored floor tiles. Inside the office, Braden's phone vibrated again. He glanced down. One of the maids. Text, "Madame's water just broke in the kitchen." Braden didn't panic. He didn't even move. Instead, he calmly walked to the cabinet, poured himself a glass of spring water, and downed it in one gulp. "I'll call the driver," he muttered. Iris scoffed. "You're not going to take her yourself?" He gave her a dry look. "I don't want to be seen panicking. That's not on brand." She grinned, then shrugged. "Suit yourself. But maybe have them stop by the pharmacy on the way back. I need calcium pills." Braden nodded once and turned. Not a trace of urgency in his gait. Not a flicker of emotion, not even for the woman carrying his children. Amaya sat on the floor, curled into herself, cradling her belly as another contraction racked her from the inside. The world was spinning again, but this time it wasn't medical, it was betrayal. Pain layered over more pain. She heard the familiar sound of Braden's steps approaching. Sharp, shallow, deliberate. Then his voice, calm as stone. "Let's get you to the hospital." She didn't answer. He knelt beside her and offered his hand. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in years, he didn't see love, or fear, or pleading. He saw calculation, awake, aware. Amaya slowly took his hand, but only to pull herself up. She didn't lean into him, didn't ask where Iris was, didn't cry. She just stood, like a woman who had just heard the terms of her own execution, and memorized every word. Outside, the chauffeur opened the door to the luxury SUV. The hospital bag was already packed. Amaya had done that weeks ago, just in case. Braden climbed in first. She followed. The car rolled away in silence. But inside her chest, something new had ignited. Not panic, not sorrow, not even desperation. It was purpose. If this was to be her last ride, then she would arrive armed with clarity. Because she had just uncovered the secret that would change everything. The fluorescent lights overhead cast sterile halos on the white hospital walls as Amaya was wheeled through the maternity corridor. Monitors beeped. Nurses moved with urgent grace. The scent of antiseptic clung to everything. She hadn't said a word since the car ride. Not as Braden filled in her admission forms. Not when the nurse asked for her emergency contact and he answered for her. Her silence wasn't numbness. It was surgical. Precision silence. In her mind, she kept hearing the words from the office. If she doesn't survive. Amaya's body is too weak for twins anyway. You're the future, Iris. The nurse adjusted her IV, noting her contractions had increased in frequency and intensity. You're dilating faster than expected, she said with a warm smile. You might be meeting your twins today. Amaya's lips parted slightly in acknowledgement. A subtle nod. But her eyes never left the door, waiting for Braden to walk back in. And he did, not with a bouquet or a bottle of water, but with a sleek black folder. Legal papers. "Hey," he said, tone gentle, falsely reassuring. "While you're stable and still lucid, there's some paperwork we need to go over." He pulled the visitor's chair up beside the bed and placed the folder on the tray table. Just standard delivery waivers, insurance liability, some power of attorney forms. It's protocol. The hospital prefers all this signed before active labor. She blinked slowly, gaze hard on the folder. "Why power of attorney?" she asked. "In case there's a complication. I'll be able to make decisions on your behalf if needed." "And you think that should be you?" He smiled faintly. "You trust me, don't you?" That word cracked something behind her ribs. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the folder and opened it. The first page had her name pre-printed, her signature already forged. Page after page, pre-signed. It wasn't just power of attorney. There was a living will, an advance directive with a clause stating that in the event of neurological incapacitation or cardiac failure, no extraordinary measures were to be taken. Her breathing grew shallow. "Braden," she whispered. Who signed these? He hesitated. Not long, but long enough. You did. Last week. Don't you remember? No, she said. Because I didn't. He leaned closer. You've been forgetful lately. Stress. Pregnancy fog. Look, I can walk you through each page if you'd like, but the hospital staff is waiting for these. Amaya narrowed her eyes, pulse accelerating. Something deeper was wrong. This wasn't just insurance greed. This was orchestration. A script rehearsed. You want me to believe I signed off on not being resuscitated? She asked. Darling, don't call me that. Braden's jaw clenched. You're upset, understandably. But let's be rational. You're in no state to go through complex legalese. These were reviewed and handled by your own attorney. She froze. My attorney? He nodded. Regina Thompson. She stared at him. Regina had retired 6 months ago. Another lie. He was testing the waters, gauging how alert she was. And he was slipping. Braden, she said slowly, you forged these. His expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. So is attempted murder. The monitor beside her spiked, alerting the nurse. Braden stood, suddenly calm again, hands raised. Let's not get dramatic. You're exhausted. Maybe we both are. Just rest. I'll get the doctor. He gathered the papers and placed them back in the folder. As he walked out, Amaya turned toward the window, a fresh contraction rolling over her like thunder. This time, she didn't wince. She sharpened. Later that afternoon, a new nurse entered, older, experienced, with eyes that had seen things. Her name tag read, Angela. She gave Amaya a measured look. You've got visitors lined up like it's a press conference. I'm guessing you're someone important. Just married to someone who thinks he is, Amaya murmured. Angela smiled. Men like that often forget who gave them their name in the first place. Amaya's lip twitched. Angela pulled up her chart. Vitals are holding. Babies are active. You'll be in active labor within hours. Do you want me to keep anyone out? Amaya hesitated. Not yet. But I may need a phone, one that's not monitored. Angela's eyes met hers. And without another word, the nurse slipped her a burner phone from her pocket, hidden under a napkin on the tray table. Take your time. She exited quietly. With trembling fingers, Amaya dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Her brother, not Braden's favorite person. Miles picked up on the second ring. Maya? His voice alone nearly broke her. I need you to come to Valley Memorial, she said softly. And don't let anyone know you're coming, especially not Braden. Miles paused. I'll be there in 30. She hung up and buried the phone under her pillow just as Braden returned, this time with a new doctor in tow, a man in an expensive watch and cologne too thick for hospital standards. Amaya, the doctor began. I'm Dr. Lutz. I'll be overseeing your delivery today. Your husband and I have gone over your birth preferences. She blinked. I haven't even spoken to you. Braden chuckled beside her, arm casually draped on the rail of her bed. Don't worry, babe. I told him everything. No epidural, natural birth, just how you wanted. Her heart nearly stopped. She had explicitly requested an epidural in her birth plan. Braden looked at her like he dared her to contradict him in front of the doctor. Dr. Lutz smiled. Great. We'll be monitoring you closely and make adjustments if needed. He left. Braden leaned in. Iris is waiting for me downstairs. Just sign the rest, Amaya. Make it easy on yourself. I know what you're doing, she said. And yet you're still here, he whispered back. He turned and walked out, the scent of his cologne lingering like poison in the air. 10 minutes later, Miles burst in, drenched from rain, out of breath, eyes scanning everything. Who's here with you? He asked. No one, she said, gripping his hand. Not anyone who should be. He looked at her. You look different. I found the paperwork. Braden forged legal documents, living will, no resuscitation, and there's a doctor on staff working with him. Miles swore under his breath. And Iris is here too. Pregnant. His eyes widened. Oh, it gets better, Amaya added. They think I won't make it through delivery, and they're planning to be together publicly the moment I'm gone. Miles took her hand. You're not going anywhere. Neither are my children, she said. But I need you to be my witness. If something happens, if I pass out, you stop them. You tell the staff what's happening. He nodded, eyes burning. I'll do more than that. Angela re-entered. We've moved you to labor and delivery. Your room is prepped. We've assigned a second nurse for safety." Amaya breathed in deeply, not from fear, but from resolve. She was walking into war, but this time she had backup. The late afternoon sun washed the maternity wing in a golden hue, soft and deceptive, as if the day itself dared to pretend nothing was wrong. Nurses moved like dancers between beeping monitors and warm whispers. Visitors chatted in hallways. Life was unfolding in the most beautiful form, but inside room 214, betrayal sat like an anchor on Amaya's chest. She could feel it, beyond the contractions tightening across her belly like waves on rock. She could feel the weight of being alone in a marriage that had become theater. A cruel stage, a performance where she was the only one who still believed in the vows. Angela, the nurse with steady eyes and a hidden sense of justice, returned with another blanket, pretending to adjust Amaya's pillows as she leaned in and whispered, "We pulled Braden's visitor list from the front desk. She's here." "Iris?" Amaya asked, already knowing. Angela nodded. "Registered as family." A fresh contraction clenched through her body, but Amaya didn't flinch. The pain was honest. The people in her life weren't. "I need to see her," she said. Angela's eyebrows lifted. "You sure?" "Yes." Angela stepped out. Less than 10 minutes later, the door opened, and Iris walked in. She didn't look like a mistress. She looked like a bride. Red satin dress, hair pinned in soft waves, a belly just beginning to swell under her silk coat. Her makeup was flawless, her lips the same color as her dress. "Wow," Iris said, stepping closer. "You look tired." Amaya stared at her. "And you look ready for a press conference." "Oh, honey," Iris chuckled. "This isn't a war. It's a transfer of power." Amaya's chest tightened, but she didn't look away. Iris moved to the chair beside her, settling in comfortably. "I never wanted to meet like this. I imagined it'd be after, after your passing. Braden said you'd prefer privacy." "I bet he did. But you just had to keep holding on," Iris added, eyeing the IV drip. "Always so strong." Amaya smiled coldly. "If strength offends you, close your eyes." There was a silence that sizzled between them. Then Iris reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a phone, Braden's phone. He left it in the car. Careless, right? She tapped a few times and turned the screen toward Amaya. Messages. Dozens. Braden to Iris. Stage 3 tomorrow. Once she's out of surgery, PR moves in. Tell Dominic to clear her social accounts. I don't want any tributes. Keep the brand focused on legacy. Rebrand her blog under The Future with Iris. I already bought the domain. Secure the press release. Grieving husband, a new life. A new chapter for the Morgans. Amaya's fingers curled into fists under the sheets. Iris leaned in, voice silk and venom. He's planned your eulogy, your digital funeral, and your replacement. You won't even trend for 24 hours before the headlines shift to us. You're proud of that? I'm smart enough to win, Iris said, and pregnant enough to be his priority. Amaya felt her blood shift from warmth to steel. Where did you come from? She asked, voice low. What woman steps into another's home and destroys it without flinching? Iris tilted her head. The kind who knows you were his obligation, not his dream. Amaya locked eyes with her. And yet, you still had to wait for me to die. That flicker, just for a second, passed through Iris's polished exterior. The moment of doubt. The moment she realized Amaya hadn't broken. Iris stood. This room smells like a grave, she said. Amaya raised her voice just enough. Funny. That's exactly what I thought when you walked in. Iris froze and turned without another word. Angela returned not long after, her eyes searching Amaya's. She said what she needed to. She said too much, Amaya replied. Angela nodded and slipped something into her hand. A flash drive. What's this? Angela leaned close. Hospital system records, conversations Braden had with the staff, instructions, medical overrides. I pulled them from the internal logs before IT clears the cycle tonight. Amaya stared at it. Your body's fighting for 2 lives, Angela said. But this can be the knife that cuts through everything he's built. Later that night, when the ward had quieted and only the low hum of machines filled the air, Miles crept back in. He saw the tension in his sister's face and said nothing at first, just held her hand. "They're preparing a press release," she whispered. Miles blinked. They already bought a domain name with Iris's name on it. His fists clenched. "Tell me what to do." Amaya turned to him. "You know people in media." He nodded. "I need to beat them to the story." 2 hours later, in a parked car across the street from the hospital, Miles sat with a journalist friend, a woman named Celeste, razor sharp and reputation proof. "Everything on that drive checks out," Celeste said, eyes wide as she read the files. "This is premeditated end-of-life sabotage. If you weren't still alive, Amaya, they'd have erased you by dawn. I want the world to know," Amaya said over speakerphone. "Before he even thinks I'm gone." Celeste exhaled. "It'll run by morning. I'll headline it. The billionaire, the pregnancy, and the almost widow." "Make it hurt," Amaya said. Celeste grinned. With pleasure. Back in her room, Amaya laid her head against the pillow. The heartbreak didn't come all at once. It came in echoes. The first time Braden told her he loved her at their college library. The first time he kissed her forehead after she fainted from working 2 shifts in one day. The vows. The night they danced barefoot on their balcony after getting the news they were finally expecting. And now, this. A man who mocked her labor pains. A man who sent out funeral drafts before she'd even delivered. A man who dared to turn love into a transaction. Tears slipped down her temples in silence. But she didn't cry because she was weak. She cried because something inside her had fully died. And from that death, a fire began to rise. The hospital lights flickered, casting sterile beams across the corridor. Floors and the smell of antiseptic clung to the air like dread. The monitors in room 214 began to scream. Angela was the first through the door. Code red. "She's hemorrhaging." Amaya's face was pale, her eyes wide with a terror she hadn't known until now. Her body arched as pain tore through her like a tidal wave, relentless, consuming. Blood soaked the lower half of the sheets. I can't feel my legs," she murmured, barely audible. The machines monitoring the twins began to wail in syncopated alarms. 2 heart rates, erratic, struggling. Angela pressed the emergency button on the wall. "Get Dr. Ramos now." The hallway exploded into motion. The crash team arrived within seconds, gurney wheels screaming across polished floors as Amaya was lifted, oxygen masks strapped across her mouth. Her body jerked again. She gripped Angela's hand and whispered, "Promise me they'll live. Promise me." Angela tightened her grip. "You focus on breathing. I'll make sure you meet your babies." Doors slammed open as the team wheeled her toward the emergency theater. Braden was nowhere in sight. Inside the operating room, the air was 10 degrees too cold, and the lighting was surgical white, merciless and bright. Dr. Ramos barked orders over the din of heart monitors, his hands already gloved and hovering above her belly. "Twin B is crashing. No time for epidural. She's going under." Angela adjusted the IV, while another nurse strapped Amaya's arms gently. Her blood pressure's dropping. 72/43. Dr. Ramos looked over the sheet. "I need silence and speed." "Scalpel." Amaya's eyes fluttered. Her lips moved beneath the oxygen mask, trying to say something. A whisper, a name, a prayer. Then her head dropped to the side. In the waiting lounge, Iris crossed her legs and took another photo of her baby bump. She applied a rose-toned filter and added the caption, "New life, new beginnings, love wins, #legacy." She barely noticed the chaos near the surgical wing. She only smiled wider as she refreshed the comments under the blog post Braden's publicist had quietly published an hour ago, celebrating the future of the Morgan dynasty. Strength in transition. Back in the media room, Braden was pouring whiskey into a glass, still, in his lounge suit, unbothered by the sterile scent of the hospital. The TV showed muted footage of the press conference he had staged earlier that morning, speaking of family resilience, unpredictable tragedies, and emotional rebirth. The irony was, Amaya wasn't even dead yet, but Braden was already living as if she had been written out of the script. Inside the operating room, the atmosphere had thickened into pure survival. Amaya's pulse weakened further, barely a flutter beneath the skin. The fetal monitor let out a terrifying sound. Dr. Ramos didn't flinch. "We're going in." Twin, first. Scalpel met skin. 1 incision. A suction of blood. Another. Then a cry. Thin, wailing, fragile, but alive. A nurse lifted a baby girl from the womb, Cord still pulsing. Angela rushed forward, wrapping the newborn in a heated blanket, whispering, "You're strong like your mama. You scream, baby girl. You scream for both of you." "Doctor," Ramos turned back. "Twin B. Now." Amaya's blood pressure dropped again, now in the 30s. Her body convulsed. Clamps were applied. Twin B wasn't moving. Ramos reached deeper. And then, a sound. Softer. Choked. But real. The boy had arrived. Barely breathing. But fighting. Angela took him next, eyes stinging. 2 miracles in 1 war. In the hallway, Miles had just arrived. He'd sprinted from his apartment the moment Celeste called him with the headline. Braden's betrayal was already trending. When he stormed into the surgical wing, he wasn't met with doctors. He was met with silence, and a long sheet of red footprints stretching from the operating room door. He dropped to a seat. "God, don't take her," he whispered. "Don't let her die while that snake drinks champagne." Inside the OR, Amaya flatlined. The beeping became a drone. Angela's breath caught in her throat. Dr. Ramos slammed the table. "Code blue, clear the airway. 1 amp of epinephrine, now." The defibrillator was wheeled in, charging 200 joules. Angela held her breath. "Clear." Amaya's body jolted. Nothing. Again, 300. "Clear." The monitor skipped, then fell flat again. Angela stepped closer to her ear and whispered, "You made it this far. Your babies are breathing. Don't you dare stop now." A tear rolled down Amaya's cheek. It was enough. The monitor ticked once, then again, then steadied. Hours later, when Amaya awoke, the room was dimmed. The machines were quieter. Her throat ached from the tube. Her body felt stitched together with lightning, but then she heard it. 2 cries. Close. Real. Alive. Angela walked in, carrying them, 1 in each arm. "The girl came out first," she said softly. But they both came out swinging. Amaya could barely lift her arms, but she reached. Angela laid the babies down beside her, and for the first time, Amaya felt something that made the betrayal irrelevant. Hope. It was small, wrapped in 2 blankets, but it was breathing. The soft jazz playing in the executive lounge did nothing to dull the chill in the air. Floor-to-ceiling windows cast a pale silver sheen over the velvet upholstery, and the glass walls gave a commanding view of the hospital grounds, still, sterile, and entirely unaware of the war happening down the hall. Braden looked relaxed. He lounged in a charcoal Italian suit, his shirt collar slightly loosened, a crystal tumbler of whiskey in one hand. Beside him, Iris, the woman in red, the carefully manicured secret Amaya never fully uncovered until it was far too late, adjusted the folds of her designer dress with a bored flick of her wrist. "Is the press release ready?" Iris asked without looking up from her phone. "Almost," Braden said, tapping his screen. "We're just waiting for confirmation. Once it's official, I'll have my assistants send it out." "So cold," she mused, not accusingly, more like a compliment. He chuckled, sipping slowly. No point pretending anymore. It was bound to happen. Still, she trailed off, tilting her head. "Are you sure there won't be any legal backlash? What about the twins?" Braden's lips barely twitched. "There won't be twins if the labor fails. You heard what Dr. Geller said. It's touch and go, and if she doesn't make it, then it's just me and a clean narrative." Iris's eyes glittered. "You're betting on death. I'm betting on freedom." A moment passed in which the only sound was the soft clink of ice in his tumbler. Down the hallway, the heart monitor shrieked once, then steadied. But no one in the lounge flinched. No one asked about Amaya. Iris crossed her legs. "You should have let her sign those documents last week. Would have saved you the drama." "I tried," he said flatly. "But she kept asking questions, kept saying she needed time. You were always too soft with her." He exhaled slowly. "That softness is the reason I'm here now, waiting. If I'd been firm from the beginning, if I had cut things cleanly when Iris came back from Madrid, none of this would have gotten so messy." She smirked. "Messy? You mean impregnating your wife while your girlfriend helped write the new prenup?" Braden didn't respond. Instead, he leaned forward and set the tumbler down on the marble coffee table. Iris took it as a cue. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a sleek tablet. "Here, final draft. We've got tragic loss during complicated labor, Tech tycoon Braden Cross faces future alone. You approve? He read it once, then again. Change faces future alone to remains devoted to legacy of late wife and unborn children. That way it sounds more noble. Unborn, Iris repeated. Braden's jaw flexed. If they survive, we'll pivot. But I need the sympathy angle. Investors will panic otherwise. She adjusted the line. Done. Across the hospital, nurses scrambled to control the bleeding. Amaya's body trembled, cold seeping into her limbs as machines beeped warnings. Yet not a single alert crossed into the lounge. Braden pulled his phone again. His face remained impassive. Don't you think it's a little ironic? Iris said. What? That she spent 9 months carrying the legacy you wanted, and now she might die, and no one will know the truth. He looked at her sharply. Relax, she added with a smile. You've always been good at lies. Braden stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city lights like a man calculating something irreversible. This wasn't how I planned it. Iris rose too, trailing behind him. Then how did you plan it? He didn't answer immediately. I wanted her to agree. I wanted her to see reason, to step aside gracefully, to let me build the future I deserve without dragging emotions into it. She was never going to step aside, Iris replied. That's what made her dangerous. He nodded slowly. That's why I needed insurance. Is that what I am to you? He turned, finally meeting her gaze. No, you're the reward. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Behind them, the monitor in the operating room flatlined for half a second. The head nurse cursed under her breath, squeezing Amaya's hand as if that would summon her spirit back into her broken body. The doctor worked furiously, issuing orders. They weren't ready to lose her. Not yet. Braden checked his watch. Any word yet? He asked. You want me to text Dr. Geller? Do it. As Iris typed, her phone buzzed. A short message. She read it, blinked once. Then she smiled wider than she had all evening. What? Braden asked. She handed him the phone. The text read, Delivery started. Twins in distress, mother unresponsive, prepping for emergency extraction. He didn't smile. But he also didn't frown. Instead, he handed the phone back. Prepare the next statement, he said. What title? He looked out the window again. Cold, calculating, widower. And behind him, the machines screamed louder than ever, but they didn't echo in the lounge. They never did. Chapter 6, Dr. Elodie's Choice, 3,000 words. The hallway outside the surgical theater was flooded with fluorescent light and silent pressure. Nurses whispered in clusters. A legal team had just left, leaving behind a paper trail as cold as the air. In the corner, Dr. Elodie Santos stood frozen, her gloved fingers slightly trembling. The surgical mask on her face couldn't hide the war in her eyes. She stared at the consent forms Braden had forced into the hands of the on-call administrator minutes ago. Forms authorizing a DNR. Forms removing any heroic interventions should Amaya go into cardiac arrest. Forms that had been signed not by the patient but by the husband. A husband who hadn't seen his wife in over a week. A husband currently sipping champagne in the lounge with another woman. Dr. Santos had taken an oath, and that oath was screaming at her now. Inside the OR, Amaya's pulse weakened. Her body was racked with trauma. Both babies were showing signs of fetal distress. The monitors blinked in a silent scream. We need to decide. Now, one of the assisting nurses whispered, The legal order is clear. But it wasn't her decision, Dr. Santos said, her voice hoarse. She didn't sign anything. She didn't revoke her right to live. The anesthesiologist looked up from his station. Doctor, if you move forward without consent, you risk suspension, even prosecution. Dr. Elodie Santos removed her gloves, then put on a new pair. So be it. She turned toward the surgical team. Begin cesarean. Now. The room ignited in motion. Tools clattered. Monitors beeped. Sterile sheets fluttered as Amaya's abdomen was exposed. Her blood pressure dropped further, her heartbeat now flickering like a dying light. The first cry pierced the room like a spark in darkness. A boy. Seconds later, a softer, broken wail. A girl. The twins had arrived. Dr. Santos handed both newborns off to the NICU team, who raced them into their incubators. Then she turned back to Amaya. No pulse. The monitor went flat. Crash cart. Doctor, Santos barked. Now. Paddles were pressed to Amaya's chest. Clear. Her body jolted. Nothing. Again. Still flat. One of the nurses whispered, "We have to call it." Dr. Santos shook her head. Again. Another shock. And then a spike. Just a flicker. Then another. And then the monitor erupted in a steady rhythm. Tears filled the corners of Elodie's eyes. Amaya lived. The twins lived. And in the lounge down the hall, Braden raised a glass to a future he no longer owned. The hallway outside the surgical theater was flooded with fluorescent light and silent pressure. Nurses whispered in clusters. A legal team had just left, leaving behind a paper trail as cold as the air. In the corner, Dr. Elodie Santos stood frozen, her gloved fingers slightly trembling. The surgical mask on her face couldn't hide the war in her eyes. She stared at the consent forms Braden had forced into the hands of the on-call administrator minutes ago. Forms authorizing a DNR. Forms removing any heroic interventions should Amaya go into cardiac arrest. Forms that had been signed not by the patient, but by the husband. A husband who hadn't seen his wife in over a week. A husband currently sipping champagne in the lounge with another woman. Dr. Santos had taken an oath, and that oath was screaming at her now. Inside the OR, Amaya's pulse weakened. Her body was racked with trauma. Both babies were showing signs of fetal distress. The monitors blinked in a silent scream. "We need to decide." "Now," one of the assisting nurses whispered. "The legal order is clear." "But it wasn't her decision," Dr. Santos said, her voice hoarse. "She didn't sign anything. She didn't revoke her right to live." The anesthesiologist looked up from his station. "Doctor, if you move forward without consent, you risk suspension, even prosecution." Dr. Elodie Santos removed her gloves, then put on a new pair. "So be it." She turned toward the surgical team. "Begin cesarean. Now." The room ignited in motion. Tools clattered. Monitors beeped. Sterile sheets fluttered as Amaya's abdomen was exposed. Her blood pressure dropped further, her heartbeat now flickering like a dying light. The first cry pierced the room like a spark in darkness. A boy. Seconds later, a softer broken wail. A girl. The twins had arrived. Dr. Santos handed both newborns off to the NICU team, who raced them into their incubators. Then she turned back to Amaya. No pulse. The monitor went flat. "Crash cart." "Doctor," Santos barked. "Now." Paddles were pressed to Amaya's chest. "Clear." Her body jolted. Nothing. Again. Still flat. One of the nurses whispered, "We have to call it." "Doctor." Santos shook her head. Again. Another shock. And then a spike. Just a flicker. Then another. And then the monitor erupted in a steady rhythm. Tears filled the corners of Elodie's eyes. Amaya lived. The twins lived. And in the lounge down the hall, Braden raised a glass to a future he no longer owned. Amaya sat at the hospital window, her body still weak, her soul sharper than ever. 2 days had passed since she had risen from the edge of death. 2 days of holding her twins, Micah and Naomi, in her arms, of breathing in their scent, of promising them silently that they would never grow up thinking their mother was dead. But now the silence around her was filled with questions. Should she vanish? Dr. Elodie had offered it. An out, a new identity, a clean break, a relocation overseas with full medical care and a sealed history. The world still believed she was gone. No one but Elodie and a tight circle at the hospital knew otherwise. Disappear. Or return. She turned to the bedside drawer, pulling out an old gold bracelet, her wedding gift from Braden. It still had the inscription, "Forever, no matter what." She laughed bitterly. Her mind flashed through memories. Their first vacation, the joy when they found out she was pregnant, the day he whispered he'd never stop protecting her. But also the cracks, the way his eyes grew cold when she questioned his decisions, the business trips that lasted too long, the secrecy around Iris, and the final betrayal, the PR statement declaring her dead before her body even cooled. A knock at the door. Elodie entered. "It's time. I need your answer. The press thinks you passed. Your bodyguard is waiting. The car can take you to the private airstrip. Or I make the call, and we hold the press conference." Amaya turned to look at her baby sleeping beside her. Her voice was steady. "What would you do?" Elodie didn't answer right away. What would your daughter want to know about her mother? She finally said. Amaya stood, slowly, pain in her legs, but power in her spine. She'd want to know her mother didn't run. The press conference was scheduled within 6 hours. By the time the cameras turned on, the world had already begun buzzing with rumors. A whistleblower had leaked parts of Braden's lounge conversation. Hashtags swirled. Debates ignited. But nothing prepared the world for the woman who stepped forward. Amaya Duvall. Alive, strong, holding her children. Her statement was brief, but unforgettable. I died. But I didn't stay dead, because my babies needed me, and because the truth was louder than the lies. She didn't mention Braden by name. She didn't have to. The footage, the signatures, the betrayal, they did all the talking. Legal teams swarmed, shareholders fled, Iris vanished from public view. And Braden's name, once gold-plated, rusted in real time. But Amaya, she became a beacon, not of survival, of resurrection. And as the cameras clicked, she whispered to Micah and Naomi, "Your mama chose justice, for you, for me, for every woman ever told to be silent." The screen faded to black, and the world, it woke up. The morning light poured into the penthouse suite, golden and unbothered by the storm of headlines sweeping the city. Amaya stood before the mirror, her fingers gliding over the satin fabric of her custom gown. Deep emerald green, a symbol of rebirth. Power, peace forged in fire. Micah cooed from his bassinet. Naomi stirred. Their presence was a rhythm in her body now, proof she had lived, and lived well beyond death. The gala was hours away. The one Braden had intended to attend with Iris at his side, declaring the next chapter of his empire. Instead, the world had declared something else. Amaya Duvall returns from the dead. Braden's face was nowhere to be found. Her makeup artist, stylist, and bodyguard team moved around her like clockwork, but the mirror held her gaze. Tonight, she wouldn't just be showing up. She would reclaim her name. She dismissed the staff with a nod and turned toward the window. Below, the city buzzed. But inside, a memory rose up like smoke. The day she took his last name. The day she found out she was pregnant. The day Iris accidentally texted her instead of Braden, "She'll be gone soon." Her lips pressed together, firm. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for reckoning. She turned back to the vanity, opened a small black box, and revealed the heirloom necklace her grandmother gave her, a piece she was told to wear only the day she wanted to be unforgettable. Tonight was that night. Her voice, steady, filled the silent room. For every woman who's been laughed at while bleeding, for every mother told she's weak while creating life, for every soul that rose when they were pronounced dead, I see you, and I'm walking into this war in heels. The camera faded in on Amaya stepping out of the elevator into her secured car. The city lit up in awe. Then, the screen paused and faded to black. The chandeliers of the Duvall Foundation Gala glimmered like they had no idea the truth was about to crash through them. Guests in floor-length gowns and polished suits sipped champagne, murmuring about the woman they thought had died, while celebrating the man who mocked her into silence. Braden Duvall stood center stage, crisp tuxedo tailored to perfection, the crowd clinging to his every word. "Tonight," he began, voice dipped in faux solemnity, "we honor resilience, we honor legacy, and we remember those who gave everything in silence." He paused dramatically, let his eyes shimmer. "The mother of my children, my late wife, Amaya." Some in the crowd dabbed their eyes. Iris, draped in blood-red satin, sat front row. She leaned in, clinked her glass against Braden's as he descended from the podium. "A perfect eulogy," she whispered. Braden smirked. She would have hated it. Then the lights dimmed, and a spotlight shifted. He turned. Gasps echoed through the marble hall like aftershocks. There, in the arched golden doorway, stood Amaya. Alive, radiant, unapologetically whole. The room spun. Phones raised. Iris's wine glass slipped and shattered. Amaya walked forward in slow, regal strides. The media had been tipped off anonymously. Footage broadcasted live. Whispers became roars. "She's alive. Is this a PR stunt? No, it's her. She's really here." Braden's face paled under the heat of the lights. His mouth opened, closed. Amaya stopped just before the stage. The band silenced. The cameras locked on. She took the mic from the stunned announcer's hand. "I heard there was a tribute tonight. she said, her voice calm but firm. It's only right I be present for my own eulogy. Laughter cracked like thunder across the gala. She turned slowly to Iris. Would you like to clink your glass again? Or have you lost your taste for pretending? Iris stood, trembling. Amaya continued. I nearly died bringing life into this world. And while I lay on the operating table, gasping for breath, this man, she gestured at Braden, mocked my pain, planned my obituary, stamped documents I never signed. Her eyes swept the crowd. Some of you knew. Some of you whispered. Some of you said nothing. A cold silence fell. But I'm not here to beg or break. She turned to the projector. Let's tell the truth, shall we? Footage played, Braden laughing with Iris. The document signing. The false death pronouncement. Dr. Elodie's testimony. The moment the twins cried. The moment her heart restarted. Gasps turned into outrage. Senators walked out. Donors ripped off name badges. Iris fled. Braden tried to speak, but security approached him. Sir, we've been asked to escort you out. You're under federal review. Amaya stepped aside as he was led past her. I guess I do fit the role of your wife, she said. The one who outlived you. The room erupted. Applause. Cheers. Some tears. Micah and Naomi's images filled the screens. Amaya raised her glass. To every woman who chose to rise, to every man who believed power could bury truth, and to every heart that beat again when the world wanted silence, this is our resurrection. The camera zoomed in, not on Braden, but on the mother, the warrior, the woman they thought was gone, but who had just begun. The ballroom doors swung wide with a sound that silenced 100 conversations. In the golden light, framed by the ornate archway and trailing a gown like a river of emerald flame, Amaya walked in. Gasps erupted. Glasses tilted. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Braden's eyes widened first. Iris's next breath caught in her throat. The smile that had lingered from his tribute to her memory dissolved into stunned stillness. The woman they buried in press statements. The woman he claimed had passed peacefully. The woman he used to seal a billion-dollar expansion deal was walking toward them. Alive, unapologetic, and documented. Her heels struck the marble in perfect rhythm. With each step, she saw flashes of phones rise like fireflies. The press, at first confused, now surged forward from the back of the room, whispering then shouting, Is that Amaya Duval? Wasn't she declared? Is this a publicity stunt? The ballroom lights dimmed, and all heads turned toward the central screen on the wall. No one had cued the tech, but it played. Audio first. Braden's voice, casual, cruel. By the time she flatlines, we'll already have her assets signed over. Let Iris stand behind me with the child-friendly press release. We'll say we mourn. Then we scale. Gasp. Then Iris, do you want me to wear red or black to the funeral? Laughter. Then Braden's again read. Let's show them we're alive. In real time, the screen flashed into video, Braden and Iris in the lounge during Amaya's surgery. Her flatline buzz audible from the hallway. His laugh echoed now inside this grand ballroom. He had no words. Amaya stepped closer to the stage. Braden staggered back. Security guards stepped in, but so did local officers, walking in behind Amaya, now holding evidence. Braden Duval, you are under investigation for medical conspiracy, fraud, attempted unlawful asset acquisition, and obstruction of care. Iris tried to step away. You too, Miss Hadley. Flashbulbs lit the room as if it were the Oscars. Cameras rolled. Press pushed forward. Amaya turned to the crowd. This wasn't a resurrection. This was survival. This wasn't a miracle. It was a choice, a doctor who defied orders, a mother who refused to die, and a truth too heavy to stay buried. The crowd applauded. Braden was led out in cuffs. Iris followed, sunglasses crooked. The screen behind her froze on a shot of Amaya holding both twins. The same room that had toasted to her memory now bowed to her presence. And in the silence that followed, someone whispered, That's what real power looks like. The ballroom was no longer echoing with violins. It had fallen into a stunned silence. The doors remained open behind Amaya as she stood, alive and unshaken, in the center of a collapsing illusion. Guests gawked, phones out, whispers swelling into gasps. The world had just watched Braden's entire house of cards collapse. Iris had run. The press was still recording. But all Braden saw was her, his wife, his ghost, his undoing, Amaya. Braden stumbled forward, his voice hoarse, his lips barely forming the word as if it physically hurt. I thought, you thought I was gone, she finished calmly, holding his gaze like steel. And you celebrated? I didn't. He dropped to his knees before her. The room inhaled. I didn't know they'd bring you back. She blinked slowly, jaw tightening. You didn't want them to. Braden sobbed into his hands, pride forgotten. Iris made me believe. She said your heart stopped. She said there was no hope. No, Amaya said, lowering herself to his eye level. She said that because you told her to. You signed the DNR. You declared me dead while I was still breathing. You chose to let me die so she could have your name. I was weak. You were wicked. She rose, heels clicking against the marble, and turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Amaya announced, her voice clear as bells. Thank you for attending the celebration of a man who planned a funeral while his wife was still in surgery, a man who counted on my silence, who mistook a woman's coma for her defeat. Braden groaned from the floor. But let me tell you what you all got wrong, Amaya continued. You didn't bury the weak wife. You buried the wrong woman. Gasps, applause, silence again. Braden crawled toward her, desperate and pathetic. Please, Amaya, please. I'll make it right. I'll fix everything. I'll step down from the company. I'll give you everything. She turned slowly, her face stone. You can't give back what you took. He wept, his suit stained, hair disheveled. Then, tell me what to do. Amaya moved closer. The camera lights hit her eyes like spotlights. You will confess, she whispered. You will stand before every board, every shareholder, every foundation you ever donated to, and say you left your wife on an operating table to die for your ambition. Braden looked up, horror-struck. That will ruin me. It already has. She pivoted, lifting the microphone from the gala podium. Her voice boomed through the speakers now, steady and solemn. Tonight is not just about me. It's about every woman who was silenced, mocked, buried before her time. Every mother who bled in silence while men played empire games. Every life that was reduced to an obituary before the story even began. Amaya's eyes scanned the room. Then, to the press, to the public, to every person who ever asked me to shrink, myself for a man's comfort. I say this, you planned my funeral. Now watch your empire collapse. The mic dropped. Police officers approached. Braden didn't resist. His wrists trembled as they cuffed him. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. And, Amaya? She turned, her satin gown trailing like a comet across marble, backlit by the full moon that streamed in from the rooftop skylight. The twins were waiting in the car. So was Elodie. But first, she paused at the doorway and smiled. Outside the towering corporate headquarters of Wolf Enterprises, reporters crowded the steps, their microphones pointed upward like drawn swords. Braden was nowhere to be seen. The once celebrated tech mogul was now the villain of every screen across the country. His empire was hemorrhaging. Sponsorships? Gone. Stock? Crashed. Boardroom? Abandoned him. Clients? Pulling out. And as if poetic justice wrote the script, it was his own voice that fueled the fire, his laughter in the lounge as Amaya coded red in the delivery room. The board convened an emergency vote. Braden Wolf is hereby removed from all leadership responsibilities effective immediately. All accounts, assets, and authorizations have been frozen pending legal investigation. He had built it with steel hands and stone heart. Now, it slipped through his fingers like sand. Downstairs, Iris tried to enter the building, but the security gate rejected her credentials. I'm with Braden, she shouted. You were, the guard said coldly. Now you're just with the charges. And that was just the beginning. It was Detective Moreno who broke the silence. We have reviewed all medical records, cross-referenced security footage, and traced the forged paperwork used to declare Mrs. Amaya Wolf deceased. All roads lead back to Iris Gaines. At her arraignment, Iris showed up in a tailored cream suit, her lips glossed and eyes defiant. But when the charges were read, her composure finally cracked. 1 count of conspiracy to commit medical fraud, 1 count of attempted murder by coercion, 1 count of obstruction of emergency care, 1 count of identity falsification. Her attorney tried to spin it as a lover's desperation. The courtroom didn't flinch. A nurse stood as witness. She told us to withhold oxygen from the mother if she coded. Said she was better off gone. Gasps exploded. At the back, Amaya watched, flanked by Elodie and her legal team. Her twins were safe at home, but this moment wasn't about her pain anymore. It was about public reckoning. Iris turned once, trying to find Braden's eyes in the gallery. He didn't show. The judge didn't blink. Bail denied. Defendant will be remanded into custody until trial. As the guards cuffed her wrists, Iris screamed, "You can't bury me like this." Amaya whispered, "But you tried to bury me alive." 2 weeks later, inside the Department of Vital Records, Amaya held her babies in her arms as the clerk returned with the updated birth certificates. Both infants now officially bore her last name. Mother, Amaya H. Wolf. Father, omitted by court order until DNA verified. She chose not to fight for Braden's rights, not yet. Not until the full trial concluded. The court respected her request. The babies cooed as she kissed their foreheads. No more forged forms. No more lies on documents. No more silence. As they left the building, media cameras swarmed. "Amaya, what does this mean for your ex-husband?" One shouted. She smiled softly, tucking a baby's blanket around him. "It means the truth has a name now, and it will never be buried again." She didn't stop for interviews. She didn't pose for press. She simply got into the car, her driver closing the door gently behind her. Inside, her lawyer glanced over. "You know this isn't over, right?" Amaya met her gaze. "It's not. But now, I have everything I need to finish it." The envelope bore no return address, only a prison number stamped faintly at the corner. It had arrived in a manila packet, filtered through Amaya's attorney, then couriered to her estate under strict security. She stared at it for hours, left it on the marble table beside the bassinet. The twins cooed gently nearby, unaware of the weight their mother was battling in silence. Braden Wolf, convicted, inmate, forgotten by the empire he once ruled. Now, just a name scribbled in fading ink. She finally opened it after nightfall, alone, save for the sound of soft baby breathing behind her. "Amaya, if you're reading this, it means they've given you the letter I was too much of a coward to speak aloud." She could almost hear his voice in the scroll, still neat, controlled, like a man trying to pretend he hadn't shattered lives. "No excuse I give will be enough, but I need you to know. I remember everything. The first time you smiled in that lab coat, the day I kissed you in the rain outside the hospital, the night you told me you were pregnant." She paused, fingers trembling slightly. Iris was never supposed to be more than a distraction. I told myself I had to protect the brand, the company. I lied to myself, over and over. But the moment I heard the nurse scream code red, and I still stayed seated, I think a part of me died too. She folded her arms tightly across her chest. "The footage you played. I watched it in court, my laugh, my words. I don't recognize that man. But I know it was me. I know I lost you long before the hospital. I think I lost you when I stopped protecting you and started protecting my ego." Her eyes watered, not with forgiveness, but with grief for what could have been. "I've lost everything, Amaya. The board, the name, even my own reflection. But the twins, I saw their pictures in the news, and somehow they still look like hope." Her throat clenched. "Please, don't tell them I never loved you, because that's the only thing I didn't lie about." He signed off not as CEO, not as Braden Wolf, just B. She sat in silence for a long time. Then she rose, walked calmly to the garden fireplace outside. The stars were clear above the Italian sky. She lit a match, held the letter in the flame, and watched it curl, blacken, then disappear into ash. Behind her, the twins stirred. She turned back toward the house and whispered, "We're done." The morning sun filtered through the glass walls of the modern auditorium, casting soft golden hues across the stage where Amaya now stood, poised, composed, alive. A full year had passed since the night she reclaimed her voice in a room that once echoed with betrayal. But today, the echoes were different. They were sacred. They were hers. The backdrop behind her bore the name she had built from ashes, the Nova Initiative, a nonprofit for survivors of medical neglect, childbirth trauma, and institutional betrayal. The room swelled with quiet reverence. Mothers, daughters, families, supporters. Some sat with tears clinging to their lashes. Others held notepads like lifelines. but all of them leaned forward as Amaya stepped into the spotlight. She wore a deep lavender blouse, the color of rebirth, paired with white trousers that radiated serenity. Her natural curls framed her face like a crown. She didn't wear armor anymore. She wore truth. She took a deep breath. 1 year ago, she began, I was pronounced dead. Gasps rippled through the room. She nodded solemnly, letting the weight of that truth settle. Not by a doctor, not by a surgeon, not even by a machine. I was pronounced dead by people who thought my value expired the moment I was no longer useful to them. She paused, scanning the crowd. But I'm here to tell you, survival isn't just breathing. It's fighting. It's choosing to wake up one more day for the ones who need you, for yourself. The applause was warm, respectful, and then, with a hand on her heart, she shifted into story, the journey after the storm. Amaya recounted the quiet days after the chaos, how her recovery had been both physical and emotional, how her twins, Aiden and Nova, had become the anchors that held her from floating into grief, and how, in the ruins of public scandal, she began to build something entirely her own. I didn't want revenge, she said. I wanted resurrection. That was the line that earned a standing ovation. Her voice never wavered when she spoke about Iris's sentence, 5 years, no parole, or Braden's corporate empire, now splintered, auctioned, exposed, nor when she revealed the truth that made reporters cry, that her children had never carried their father's last name again. She spoke of rebuilding, of therapy, of starting the Nova Initiative not just for justice, but for community. There are women in this room, she said, who thought they were the only ones. You're not. You're seen. Her eyes shimmered with emotion as she closed. If someone had told me, while I was lying unconscious on that operating table, that to be standing here a year later speaking to survivors, I wouldn't have believed them. But grief didn't win. Silence didn't win. Neglect didn't win. I'm not a martyr. I'm a mother. And I'm alive. She stepped back from the podium as the room erupted. Standing ovation. Tears. Hugs. Hope. A young girl in the front row whispered to her mother, "She looks like a superhero." And in many ways, she was. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to keep these lessons alive. Comment where you're watching from, or just say, "I'm with you, Dr. Phillips." You're not alone.